Hello, Dr. Mike here. This is for my CIS-2640 Network Security/Security Plus uh, students, and it is the topic of business continuity. At the time of this recording is topic 14, week 14, and again, at the time of this recording of this textbook, it is chapter 14. So we'll take a quick look. As usual, I always recommend, please, if you have the textbook, look through the textbook, read it for full explanation. I'm just going to go over a few concepts here of it. Begin business continuity. Well, what is it? It's a fancy name for backups, right? So it's more than that. But at first, though, it's a fancy name for backup. But from my experience, here's what it is. And you can also try this even personally, but in a business context, you can back up all you want, and that's great. But until you can prove you can restore a backup in the time you said you would, hence the customer's time, then you really don't have business continuity. So it's that it goes beyond just, can I restore data that's been deleted, or a bad hard drive failure, the server failure. It's totally continuing the business itself. So this is a pretty large, when it comes to large institutions and companies, this is a pretty large endeavor. It will involve more than just system administrators, database administrators. It could involve physical. It could involve network, phones, you name it. Right? How would we do if the entire building burns down? If our office building burns down? How we continue business. What if our data center gets flooded? Do we have a backup data center? So what's their impact? So this is really from their last chapter. This is the one level above the vulnerability assessment, risk assessment. This is overall business assessment as a risk on a business level. So things to talk about here. I'm not going to get. This is really going to cherry pick the chapter here, but these threats to our business. So again, take our previous topics, which was again chapter 13's vulnerability assessment, and elevate that to a level of business. Identify all threats to our business itself. Then we have doing procedures to recover for that. And then we test them. Very important. We test those procedures. This could be having usually happens on weekends a lot. It's called BCP testing. I said it before, where, for example, where I worked before, they had a backup data center in Springfield. And they would actually do a failover on the weekend when there's least customers on the system, failover the current data center to the previous one. So they go through the plans. What happens if we need to shut down this data center? How quickly can we bring up the other one? Or how quickly does the hot standby come up? And it should come up in a certain amount of time. That's the thing, there's a certain amount of time. There's a term here, SLA, Service Level Agreement. And this is going to be important to have this laid out, and it should be directed from a high level up. We're talking executive level should say, we're going to be up, a certain amount of time. We need to have, if our website goes down, we should be up in an hour. We should be up and running again with full capacity to take orders. Or if customers can't log in, they should be able to log in within the next hour, or maybe a day. We have 24 hours after a server fails to get back up, so people can log in and access maybe things they purchased. Maybe software. We have a software server that we give software people who they bought software. So, and all this information should be detailed, especially service level agreements. And first off, when negotiating service level agreements, you're going to usually see it in a percentage. 99.9%, right? And the more nines you add here, the more money you're going to need to spend. So why is that? So first off, you could be working with a CFO, let's say, or a CIO, not too well versed on the technical side. And so let's look at an uptime calculator. They go, well, I just need to be up 99.9%. We need to tell our customers, well, we're up 99.9%. You go, okay, well, that's cool. That means we can be down a minute a day, 10 minutes a week, or even 45 minutes a month. They go, oh, that's not good. Uptime 99.9 is down for 8 hours a year. That's not acceptable. Okay, what about 9/9? Okay, I guess it's 8 seconds if we can a day, 1 minute a week. So 8 seconds. So you go, well, we want that. Actually, we want to be up and running. In other words, if a customer is using our system and they have a full cart of order and our website goes down and it has to fail over and be up and running with their cart within 8 seconds, 8 to 10, let's say 9.8. So within 20, 30 seconds. So you give yourself a range for that SLA. And they might see a small blip, a small wait, no more than 17-second wait. From when we've cached their order to when the backup data center comes up. So you can see how this number can drive all the technical stuff underneath it. Failovers, backup servers, backup cloud, to regional cloud servers, East Coast, to Virginia, Amazon, to Pacific, have a Pacific failover. These SLAs are very important. SLA on response time. If a customer clicks on a web page, it should only take 500 milliseconds to respond. So SLA is a deep hole. And just realize the more you add here, the more nines you add, the more money is going to need to be spent. And this is why this SLA needs to be understood by the executives who want it, understand the money they need to spend to achieve it. So with that all agreed upon and set and documented, agreed to by the higher ups, now we can move forward and make sure we can meet these service level agreements with our business continuity plan. So again, think of disaster recovery when it comes to business continuity. It's not just if the server breaks. What if we can't? The building burns down. What if the people can't connect? What if our remote workers can't connect? We lose VPN access. What's the impact? So, and this is a big part here. Is communication too. How do we communicate out to our employees that don't come into the office is burnt down? So you can see this team is going to involve human resources, because it can involve maybe managers from all departments, maybe sales, of course, system administrators, networking, definitely network, not just for network, but VoIP, for example, remote access, and of course physical security too. So it is a pretty large team. When it comes to cybersecurity, though, really it's about, again, identifying exposure to threats. So again, in these threats, again, and this just really harkens back to the previous chapter about what's the impact to the property, is it tangible, how much money will we lose, is there a safety, or is it reputation? It's hard to put money on reputation a lot of times, so it's a hard metric to come up with, but at least maybe have a checkbox that if this does happen, it's going to be seen negatively upon with our customers. So again, out of this, you should be able to find mission and essential functions, things you need to keep the business running. Some stuff will fall off, right? Again, almost go through all your assets. So you can say, well, if we can't get into the office, who cares if the front lobby Wi-Fi doesn't work, and the visitor, the visiting offices lights don't work. That's low-level stuff. We need to make sure the data center runs, and our app support team, DevOps, does have power and they can have access. And so you can see you can build this sort of missing essential layers, and then of course how we mitigate against certain threats. So important thing here on this slide I like this is single point of failure. So again, this is business impact analysis. It's something you don't do once. This is very important. This goes along with, again, I can't harken enough for this. I said this before in chapter 13. For the vulnerability assessments, it's not a one-time and one-and-done thing. Hey, we did one pen test. We did one vulnerability assessment. Cool, we're done. No, we did one this quarter. We can do one again in a year or a quarter. Same with this. The business impact analysis should have a cycle. And you can always look at previous ones and say, are we improving or are we getting worse? And one of the things you should identify is a single point of failure. and that should be tackled, taken care of. Again, mitigation. It could be buying another network switch, adding more more bandwidth to our backbone, identifying these critical systems. And there's something I ran across a while ago. This has been around for a while, but when it comes to cloud, this is an interesting aspect here is learn from people who have done this. And so this is an example. This is for Netflix. Netflix, as we know, Netflix really runs the cloud. They are born and they run on the cloud. And they have something here called, they have all these tools. One here called Chaos Monkey. They actually will run this thing, and again, I'm not sure at the time of this if they run anymore, but look at blogs, look at open source initiatives, look at just communications, best practices from people who have already been through this. Netflix is fantastic. Again, we're a cloud-based company. We want to be 99.99%. You don't have to use this exactly, but Chaos Monkey, this thing actually runs through production, web, cloud-based services, and this will shut down servers randomly. And the cloud should be built enough to where it can fire up another one to take its place. That's what the essence of Cloud Monkey is. I remember talking about this at a company I work for, and the idea of doing this was just like, you gotta be kidding me. You never touch production. If it's running, you leave it. You don't mess with it. You only test on weekends. But the thing here is resilience. Resilience to incident failures. And so again, maybe this is something you want to achieve towards, where you can go in and actually test in real production in a cloud, especially in a cloud environment where with cloud you should be able to fire up another server if one goes down within a really short amount of time. So, and also this will show and expose those single points of failures. So we have a choke point somewhere that we didn't recognize. There's large levels of architecture here. Network architecture, server architecture that was inherited and maybe old and might have some weaknesses inside them that aren't really apparent until you get to this point and you look for you press the systems really hard. You find that they start collapsing. Basically, it's like a dominoes. If one collapses, the failover actually puts too much on the second server and it collapses, and then the whole multi-server, 3 to 5 servers running, is not going to work. So we need to actually maybe add more capacity to each server to absorb that. So there's a lot of stuff that you'll do during this business impact analysis, and this goes hand in hand with the BCP testing. So again, this really is another bleed over from previous chapter about vulnerability assessment. From all this risk of something happening, can anything leak out, especially PII, if we're HIPAA, things like that. So let's look for those data assets that could come to a point where they could leak. So we don't want that to happen. So you need to have a plan, definitely. It should be a living document. It gets tested maybe once a quarter, once a month. Those test results should be documented. There should be a follow-up. It could be a quick meeting with the people in charge of testing. And different approaches for each test. You just don't do the same test each time. Different disruption events. So again, and look at the most impactful events and test those first, and then come back and then look at the least impactful. And then do we have plans in place? And these plans could not just be from this plan itself. Do we have a process in place? Does the person sitting at midnight, the brand new college employee we just hired, who's doing level 1 call support, they know what to do if the system goes down? Do they have a checklist of first do this, second do this, then third call this person, and fourth do this? And if they do, test it, make sure it works, because systems will change over time, and so should the support plans for those systems, those policies, and those front desk, help desk checklists should also be reviewed. So purpose of the scope, and again, these plans, where do you start? Again, you don't start alone. Again, I'm back at NIST, and I Dr. Mike, you're always at NIST. Well, NIST is fantastic. So now when it comes to NIST, though, like the 834. This is for federal information systems. So you could be a medium business. Maybe you work with the cloud. Maybe a large business with your own data center, but you don't do anything federal. This is definitely something that it's worth reviewing. But you don't have to. You would pick and choose what makes sense out of this and make your own plan from it. But again, it's a great place to start. You have this information here. You know, if you don't have one at all, that should be an alarm bell. At least you have somewhere to start. But if you have one, you might be able to go through and review it and say, yeah, we're not actually checking this. We're looking for interdependencies. And a couple things too here is, which I'm gonna come on here in a second here. It's just right here. I'll come back to that. But there's other things too. SANS has something called Reading Room. If you log in, you create a free account with SANS. People make these, Reading Room's got these great papers. These aren't SANS, these aren't NIST level papers, but you can get some good information here. You might get some good, that's more specific to what you're looking for. These are written by, I believe, people going through SANS, like master level programs, and they have information here, and they have these great papers. So maybe you're looking for secured design for a data center, following terrorism. So maybe it's something more specific. So go to SANS, it's great. Something you're going to see though, and we saw here in the plans, something you get to deal with is metrics. There's certain metrics that you should stand up. So first, we talked about one already, and we're giving names of stuff, right? A service level agreement. What's our SLA? Now the SLA could be in percentage. It could be a time, right? You know, we will have your order processed within the next hour upon web server failure. Something that your customer is told. It could be percentage will be up 99.9% of the time, and so on. It's supposed to be percent. Yeah, it's a whole percent. So these metrics here, these go beyond just what we told the customer. What we're told by our providers. It could be our Amazon AWS provider. It could be people who make our hard disks. There's these things. Recovery point objectives, recovery time objectives. This is a great thing right here. It's again, as I showed before, you know, it's going to cost you more money to have higher levels of availability and, you know, higher level, more nines. So that's sort of what this shows here. But also you'll see here, mentioned here is MTFB and so on, mean time between failure. And so realize that there are other metrics that you're given to. You're given or could be influenced by your SLAs. So it goes both ways. You know, we have a bank of servers, and the hard disks on them are hard drives. So, you know, they have a mean time between failure of XYZ. How does this affect our SLA? Does that mean we replace more hard drives? And this is a great example. This is Backblaze. I used to use Backblaze for my my own personal backups. I think I moved to someone else. But you know, this is a company that literally stores people's data. So they go through a lot of hard drives, and they actually had, this is an old article, I think 2018, but you know, this failure rates of hard drives, realize, you know, hard drives are going to fail. So it's interesting to see their observations on which drives fail the most. And you should have this insight on your own systems. And this is going to help you ensure that first off, do we need to actually buy different hard drives? That could be something that comes from our business assessment impact, or our business impact assessment. So we get information from this, and it'll tell us how it's going to affect our time. You know, we're going to see more downtime because we bought cheap hard drives. So we save money here, but it's going to cost us money here. And so this contention can be something that you can address. It could be find that right balance of, well, let's not buy the highest, and we'll go buy some different Seagate drives that have a better mean time between failure, and that should have us spending a little more money here, but it should also be less money here, and it actually will help us meet our uptime SLA. Also, let's say we need to have a certain SLA. This is going to affect how much money we spend here too. Let's say we go to Amazon Web Services, and we need to have, hot failover. We got to be up within 30 seconds. So we're talking regional. If AWS East Coast goes down, Virginia, then the Virginians their data center needs to have a running synced image that has to come up within 30 seconds. Well, that's going to cost money, of course, right? So you can see this sort of give and take between both of these metrics. Metrics on one end are going to affect the cost on the other end, and so on. So just realize that the chapter talks about this too. Mean time between failures. You should get this information from. It could be either provided from. It could be like, what's the mean time to recovery for a web, a cloud-based Linux server? How long does it take for it to fire up? So these metrics should be given to you from your provider, and you should also have those as part of your planning. So, again, it's probably covered in the chapter here. Let's look at the summary. But keep that in mind. Those are metrics that you may not have thought of, but they will be very valuable when it comes to going through your business continuity planning. And the chapter probably talks about this. I'm sure it does here. It talks about using UPSs and so on. You can see a UPS, what's the mean time of failure for the batteries on those things? How long do they last? What's the shelf life of those batteries? So things like that. So again, I'm not going to go through the chapter here. It probably will talk about these things. And of course, you can see the last few things here. Again, this goes beyond just the bits of the side. There's hardware here. Does our HVAC system have failover? Again, what's the mean time of failure between HVAC systems? If the HVAC dies, our servers are going to die shortly after. So, and this is the last thing here about forensic science. That's funny that's in here. But these last two bolts are pretty important. That's why I left this chapter summary here. Part of your business planning, if the plan is, what do we do if we've been hacked? Someone stole something, it's an internal threat, external threat. We have these plans in place. Do we have our forensics covered? And I say that if talking on the cybersecurity side, it's probably going to be system logs. That's probably the topmost thing. So do we have our logs? Are they backed up? Do we have an off-site logging server that has a different login? Are those logs synced? Or example, we have an Amazon image. Let's say our old procedure we gave the help desk was we've been hacked. Step one, turn server off. And so now we went to the cloud, and that step one becomes remove server. Well, they forget that when you have the physical server, you turn it off, or maybe you pull the network plug on it. Let's say you turn it off. They said the step was turn server off. That's fine. Then the server is give server to forensics team. Forensics team can then image server, and they can look for malware, collect logs, build a timeline of the attack. Well, let's say you take that same procedure, you move it to the cloud, and now the front desk person says, we're being hacked. They go through the thing and they go, okay, I need to remove server, and they remove the server, unbeknownst to them that when you get rid of a server in the cloud, it's gone. Maybe you don't have proper logging sync going on, so now all the logs and the actual image has been removed, erased, and now you no longer have that forensics information to see how the hack happened, and how can we defend against it. So your response plan should take into account your forensics, and again, these are aspects of forensics. You think forensics, you think like in CIS or criminal, but they could forensics in the place of at least cybersecurity to help you go back and do sort of look at the incident and figure out what happened, and so we can fix it and not have it happen again. So again, that's the last thing there. Have that being part of your strategy and part of your plans. So that ends chapter 14 for business continuity. Hope this was helpful. And thank you.